All right, next up, number 28. The model shows a mutation to a partial sequence of bases in a gene. Which type of mutation does the model demonstrate? So I know that whatever this is happening here is a mutation. And this thing, this little strand sequence of bases, is being added or inserted into the original DNA sequence. So this type of mutation is called an insertion mutation because the bases are literally being inserted. Deletion would be if something was like completely deleted. Substitution would be if this G was actually converted now to an A. That would be a substitution. And then a translocation would be if I took this segment and scooched it over here. So I didn't add anything new, I just moved it. Okay. Number 29. Many frog tree populations are threatened due to habitat loss. In an effort to promote conservation, tree frogs may be bred in captivity. A zoo acquired male and female tree frogs from two different populations. In the zoo, the tree frogs were able to successfully mate with their own population, but breeding attempts between the two populations were unsuccessful. Based on this information, which correctly describes the relationship between the two populations of tree frogs? Then I see that the answer choices have kingdoms, phylum, order, species. So it has something to do with taxonomy. So if we remember, dear King Philip came over for good spaghetti. This is the most specific, and this is the least specific. I said in a previous video that organisms will only reproduce with their species, with their own species. Organisms will never ever naturally reproduce with a different species because that's not natural. Humans can artificially breed animals to do that, but animals by themselves do not do that. They always want to be in the same species. So here, they are in the same species, but different kingdoms. You cannot be in the same species and be in a different kingdom here because as you move towards here, things have to be true. If you're in the same species, it means you're in the same genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, domain. If you're in the same order, it means you are in the same class, phylum, kingdom, domain. If you're in the same order, it does not mean that you're in the same phylum, genus, or species. So anything over here to the right does not have to be true. So same species, different kingdoms does not make sense. If you're in the same species, you have to be in the same kingdom. So not A. They're in the same class, so here, but different phylums. So same class, different phylums does not make sense because phylum comes before class. They're in the same family, but different order. Same thing, order comes before family. If they're in the same family, they have to be in the same order, so this one's not correct. They're in the same genus, but different species. This is the only one that makes sense. Anything to the right does not have to be the same. Anything to the left, in this order, does have to be the same. So, same genus, different species. That completely makes sense. So my answer is D. Moving on, number 30. In a study of physical endurance, researchers observed significant increase in the heart rates and breathing rates of participants immediately after they engage in strenuous exercise. Which statement best explains the increase in heart rate and breathing rate during the exercise? Water concentration in blood increases. The respiratory system has nothing to do with water, so I'm going to say no. And because breathing has to do with respiratory, which is gas exchange, oxygen, and heart rate has to do with your cardiovascular. Okay. Water has nothing to do with respiratory, therefore it has nothing to do with the interaction between these two systems. Body cells require increased oxygen as energy is expended. This is a maybe. So they talk about oxygen, which is the respiratory system, and the way that oxygen travels through the body is the cardiovascular system when your heart pumps blood throughout it. So maybe G. Muscle cells increase in temperature and require fluid to reduce the temperature. This has nothing to do with breathing, not H. And it's also not true. An increase in muscle activity causes increase in glucose levels and red blood cells. Again, this has nothing to do with breathing, so it is not J. Best answer is G. 31. In 1998, Frederick Loeffler and Paul found evidence that the cause of the highly contagious hoof and mouth disease in livestock was a microscopic infectious particle. It was discovered that this particle requires a host cell to reproduce. That's the biggest giveaway. Which pathogen is most likely caused? The only thing we studied that requires a host cell to reproduce is a virus. It has to be a virus. Viruses need host cells to reproduce. The only one that said virus is D. Alrighty, number 32. The diagram shows a partial food web containing the Glyptapentales wasp and the life cycle of this wasp. So it has the life cycle and it has a partial food web here. Based on the two diagrams, which list correctly identifies the relationship between Glyptapentales wasp larvae with the other organisms? So I see here that we have some parasitism, mutualism, commensalism. So parasitism, when people have parasites, the parasite benefits, right? One benefits, but the other one is harmed. So the parasite benefits, the other person is harmed. For mutualism, wow, I'm misspelling a lot of stuff. For mutualism, both will benefit. And mutual, it's mutual, it's good, it's both people, both parties benefit. And then commensalism is one benefits and one is not affected whatsoever. It's like completely neutral, doesn't even care that it's there. So those are the definitions, what happens with each relationship. So we have to figure out what is the relationship between these, all right? So the adult wasps emerge and mate, go this way. Larvae leave the, here. Adults lay eggs inside geometrid moth caterpillar. Wow, so the adult wasp lays eggs inside a poor little moth. The larvae develop inside the caterpillar. The larvae leave the caterpillar. The pupae live beneath the caterpillar, and the caterpillar protects the pupae. Adult wasps emerge and mate. So this poor little moth caterpillar just has some eggs that it's like eggs are living inside of it, and it's just forced to kind of protect the pupae. So this poor little caterpillar, I'm going to say that it's being used. So this larvae is benefiting, right? It's being protected, but the caterpillar is being harmed. It has eggs inside of it. It's living with eggs. It doesn't want to do that. So I'm going to say that with the geometrid moths, it's a parasitism relationship. So this one would be correct. It's not a competition with the geometrid moths. I don't think that's right. It's not a competition with the geometric moths, and parasitism with the moths. Okay, so we've eliminated G and H because the larvae isn't competing with the caterpillar for anything. It's just using it as protection and as basically food. So that leaves us to F and J. So let's look at this one to try to answer it. The caterpillars of the moth eat the guava fruit. The stink bug eats the moth. Okay. The eucalyptus is eaten by the caterpillars, and the larvae eats the moth. So in this one, the wasp is eating the caterpillar completely. So let's see. The wasp is also fighting with the stink bug here to eat the same moth. So the larvae and the stink bug have the same food source. So this is kind of like a competition happening here. So competition between the larvae and the stink bugs, I agree with that. Commensalism of stink bugs? No. Commensalism is when one benefits and one is unharmed or not affected. But if the larvae are the ones eating the moth, that means that the stink bug doesn't have food. So it's definitely affected. So, no. But we already deleted that one, so we don't even have to look at it. J. Commensalism with stink bugs, again, no for the same reason. So not J. My answer is F. That was a long one. All right, number 33. Whew. Male guppies found in areas without predators are more colorful than the ones found in locations with large predator populations. A population of adult guppies originating from an area with a large number of predators is transferred to a nearby area with few predators. So they're saying that if there's a lot of predators, then my guppies are going to be colorful. Or not colorful. But if there's decreased predators, then my guppies are very colorful. So what happens if a population of adult guppies from an area with a large number of predators, so here, so not colorful guppies, are put into an area with few predators? So they're transferred to this environment. The mortality rate of the guppies will increase. If there's less predators, they won't die more, so not A. Offspring will stop competing for resources. Offspring always typically compete for resources regardless if they're being eaten or not. They still need to eat and, have food in their bellies. There will be an increase in mutations in the offspring. Maybe. I don't know. There will be an increase in the number of colorful guppies. This is the better answer because if they're telling you that there is a color change in areas of high predators to no predators, then they probably want you to assume that when you move those guppies that are not colorful to an area where if they would be colorful, the number of colorful guppies would increase. So D. All right, we're going to skip 34 and go directly to 35. A chart of some plant systems and functions is shown. Which system interactions are dependent on the plant's ability to respond to the direction of light? So we are looking for the part that says something about light. So roots. Roots are underground. They never see light. They just absorb the water and the nutrients. So option 1 is probably not correct because roots are underground. They don't see light. They wouldn't be affected by light. Shoot. Seed dispersal and absorption of CO2. The ability to disperse seeds and then absorb carbon dioxide from the air has nothing to do with light. So I'm going to say that option 2, the shoot system, is not it. 3, respiration and food storage. Again, this one's talking about the roots. Roots are underground. They have nothing to do with light. So I'm going to immediately eliminate that. 4, shoot, photosynthesis and food transport. Absolutely, because of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis needs light. So this is the only one that would be affected by the ability of the plant to respond to the direction of light. So my answer is option 4. Moving on here, 36. Exposure to the building materials asbestos has been linked to a certain types of cancers. Asbestos causes mutations in this gene, which controls tumor suppression. Which statement best explains why people with cancer due to asbestos exposure do not pass the mutation on to their offspring? So we're talking here about babies. Why doesn't this mutation get passed on to the babies? The mutation is sex-linked. If the mutation is sex-linked, it means that it is passed on through the X and Y chromosomes that are passed on to your children. So if the mutation is sex-linked, it would definitely be passed on to your babies. So it is not J. The mutation is recessive. Even though recessive doesn't show up as often, it can still show up to offspring, so it is not a foolproof answer. The mutation occurred in somatic cells. Somatic means body, so this is looking like a good answer. If the mutation occurred in your body cells, like your finger cells, you wouldn't pass on your finger cells to your baby. The only cells that get passed on, or the only information that gets passed on to your babies comes from your sperm cell and your egg cell. And those are gametic cells. So my best answer is, my best answer is G, because the mutation occurred in gametic cells, meaning sperm and egg, you would pass that on to your babies. So if the mutation occurred in your body cells, you wouldn't pass that on to your children, it just affects you. Number 37, which of these components are found in the cells of all living organisms? Every single thing that's alive has this. Estrogen and testosterone. If you don't recognize these are hormones in the reproductive system. You do not need, this is not needed in all living things. Plants don't have this and they're living. Hemoglobin and lymphocytes, these are things specific to animals and organisms that have blood and kind of like a lymphatic system. Plants don't have these. Plants are living. Cytosine and guanine, these sound like nitrogenous bases, which are found in all living systems or organisms. And then cellulose and chlorophyll, these are only found in plants, not in humans. Humans are alive, therefore it wouldn't include all living organisms. So the answer is C. They want you to be able to identify that genetic material, the nucleotide bases, are found in every living thing. So all living things have that same thing in common, the nitrogenous bases, the genetic code. Alrighty, number 39. The role of protists has some positive effects on maintaining the plant population and ecosystem. Protists are like a mixture of a bunch of random stuff. They're like miscellaneous organisms. So let's read. Protists are a major food source for animals. Being a food source for animals has nothing to do with maintaining plant populations, so I'm going to say that's not A. Protists produce approximately 75% of the oxygen on Earth. Protists also include heterotrophs, which means they eat other stuff, which means they're not producing their own food, meaning no oxygen. So I'm going to say that it's probably not B. Protists decompose dead materials, returning nutrients to soil. This would actually directly impact the plant population since they are returning nutrients to soil, meaning they are able to increase the plant population when needed. So I'm going to say this is a maybe. Protists found in the gut of animals assist in digestion. This has nothing to do with maintaining plant population. So the best answer here is C. Number 40, this will probably be the last one for this video. A table of four types of carbohydrates is shown below. This is a biomolecule, fast, quick energy. We have cellulose, chitin, glycogen, and starch. We have to correctly match the function to these types of carbohydrates. So let's see. Cellulose, major component of plant cell walls. A cell wall, kind of like the walls around your room, provides a lot of structure. Chitin, major component of fungal cell walls and arthropod exoskeletons. So cell walls and exoskeletons provide also a lot of structure, support, protection. Glycogen, stored in liver and muscle cells, broken down to glucose when blood glucose levels decrease. So this is talking about a sugar. Sugars typically give you a lot of energy. Starch, stored in plant roots and seeds, provides food for seeds to germinate or an animal for consumption. So anything that talks about food or consumption is going to give you some type of energy. So we have two structural protection types of carbohydrates and two carbohydrates that actually give you energy. So you just have to match them here. Cellulose and chitin are structure. Cellulose and chitin are structure. Glycogen, nope. That's an energy. Cellular starch, nope. Structure, oh, I'm crossing answers out here. Structure, chitin and glycogen, nope. So the best answer is F. So you just had to read. If it's food, it probably gives you energy. If it's talking about cell walls and a skeleton, it's probably there for support and structure. All right. And that is it for this video.